Hello and welcome to Cheat the Camera. My name is JD Henning, and you're listening to Cheat the Camera, a podcast about short films and those who make them. Today I'm talking with Zachary Danek about his life experiences and an upcoming project he's planning on working on called The Art of Sweeping Under the Rug. Zach, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give the audience just a short introduction to you and your background.
Yeah, hi. I'm originally from upstate New York. I went to school in Syracuse at Syracuse University, and in a couple years ago, I founded a short film production company to make some projects for myself and some of my other friends who are here in Los Angeles that I went to school with. And our biggest project so far has been trying to get this 25-minute monster short film off the ground. It's called The Art of Sweeping Under the Rug, and I'm sure that we will go further into detail as this develops.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely. Yeah, why don't you give a little bit of an intro to The Art of Sweeping Under the Rug?
Sure. So it's a trilogy of vignettes that focus a lot on societal apathy and male inaction towards, especially the trauma of women, but it's a little bit more elaborate than that too. It's there's a lot of stuff that goes on in society that we all kind of tolerate, but we don't necessarily like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big conversation recently has been, speaking out to members of your family who, say things that are problematic, or
Right.
having your actions, having the same integrity in your action as you do in your speech. Um, and so a lot of this short deals with people who don't learn, and they instead ignore the problems around them and allow a lot of these issues to continue.
Gotcha. So it's sort of a cautionary tale sort of paradigm?
Yeah, I was joking with my friends that I feel something like a concerned citizen raising their hand at a town hall meeting, because uh, I was just kind of feeling like there was just this huge disregard for other people. And I know that America has always been sort of a individualistic country, as opposed to for the greater good of society. Everyone's like very afraid of socialism here, but I don't know. I just felt like, but this was even before the pandemic, to be honest, that I wrote the first draft of this. I sent the first draft to my producer in 2019, and we it was at the time I was thinking more about like immigration policy
Okay.
and this sort of like, I don't know, just cruelty that existed in the country, especially under Trump. It felt like people were sort of like encouraged to fall back onto their worst behavior.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so when you between now and when you sent your first draft off, has there been a fairly significant metamorphosis in sort of how you view the project or how you're imagining the project will turn out?
There used to be a lot more of an emphasis on like some news elements, and I was sort of advised against this for a few reasons, but I didn't want it to sit too much in one exact time period, and that was something that adding adding like a direct news media element to it was gonna like very much ground it in a specific time period. Like
Right.
at one point we were sort of talking about like Syria a lot,
Okay, I see.
and that would make it feel very much like 2016, 2017 or something like that.
Right,
For the
right.
most part, there's three vignettes that make up the story, and it's sort of like the first one is sort of like a problem in the world beyond your reach. The second one is sort of like a problem next door, and the last one is a problem within your own family.
Gotcha.
And so there's also degrees of horrendousness that exist in each of them.
Okay.
And that has stayed true throughout, and each section has gone through small modifications, but it's mostly been like a lot of tweaking.
Okay.
And honestly, we were pretty much ready to shoot at the beginning of 2020, but like everybody else, we were obviously delayed.
Right.
And we kept just saying like, oh, maybe next month we'll
Right.
be able to shoot something. You
Right.
know, like everybody, we were kind of saying like, oh, it
Yeah.
seems like maybe it's about to be normal again. But you know, we've had one of our shoot days so far, and we have 5 others
Okay.
upcoming.
Okay, gotcha. So it sounds like you're sort of in the middle of this project even as we speak. You've got a little bit in the can and a little bit upcoming.
Yes, and we are actually still funding simultaneously while we're doing this.
Okay.
We have sort of a promotional video that's on YouTube right now, and at some point soon I'll be releasing the first of potentially a few teasers or trailers.
Gotcha.
From some of the footage that we do have in the can.
Yeah, yeah. And when you originally reached out to me, I took a look at sort of your teaser video that you have out currently, and you know, it's a fairly simple project. You know, we have an old CRT style, you know, old school television, and you know, we're kind of dollying in on it as the TV is showing us various sort of abstract images, and somehow the tone was really communicated very well. When I saw it, I thought, yeah, I can see what he's going for, even though by the end of it, I couldn't have told you in any specificity what the stories would have been about. So I was really kind of impressed by that you know, you managed to pack such a density of tone and sort of feel into what is really a very simple sort of one-shot teaser. So I definitely want to congratulate you on that.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. Yeah, the film has a sort of 90s nostalgia or borrowed aesthetic. We are making the film in 4:3.
Okay.
Very influenced by Andrea Arnold's
Okay.
boxier style and her collaborations with Robbie Ryan, the cinematographer.
Okay.
Also, as far as the sort of more static angles, we've also been talking a lot about like some of Jim Jarmusch's early films, like Stranger Than Paradise and Roy Andersson, a Swedish director,
Okay.
and Mikael Haneke, things like that, where scenes kind of play out from one perspective, and you sort of exist in that space in real time. So we wanted to do that with the promotional video too, and I think part of the reason the tone comes across so well is the music from our composer. Well, on Apple Music, his name is Lost Dog in Topanga. If you want to, there's a full album out actually. If you want to check
gotcha.
that out.
Yeah. It sounds like you know, you have a fairly concrete stylistic vision of what you're looking for. Could you talk a little bit about why this is the thing that you decided you wanted to spend your time on and focus on and do a series of vignettes about?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm kind of something of like a sensitive to some of these topics. Maybe I'm a sensitive person in general. I feel like a lot of the time, a little bit of what comes through in any of the writing that I've done is kind of like what I've been mulling about what's going on and how I relate to that. And so I think at the time when I was working on this, I was thinking about how I could do a somewhat simple short film in terms of like not having some kind of elaborate sci-fi element or
Mm-hmm.
a lot
Mm-hmm.
of explosions or something,
Right.
And I was thinking, like I said, a lot about kind of what was going on in culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I just felt very affected by a lot of those things, and they kind of just came out maybe through frustration or something.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like just a lot of sort of, it comes out of reflections on where our culture is at and sort of how you're feeling related to that. So I guess I have a question talking about how you got the concept. It sounds like onto paper originally. I come from a background more in sort of, I guess what you would term sort of more traditional narrative shorts and narrative fiction. And it sounds like maybe your background is more sort of in an experimental mode of filmmaking. Is that correct?
Um, I would like to say that I feel like I've always kind of been in the middle somewhere.
Mm.
While I was at school, I actually transferred from the art department to the communications department because we happen to have two film schools at Syracuse. It's kind of weird. They should just combine them.
Right.
But when I was in the art department, I was kind of feeling like a lot of the stuff I was being exposed to was interesting, but no one I knew was watching it, and
Right.
it wasn't um, prevalent enough. Like it didn't feel like viable.
Right.
And then when I switched into communications, I was like, oh, now I'm the art kid. Like now I'm now I'm the one who has weird taste. So I always kind of felt like maybe a little bit in the middle. The
Hmm.
the filmmaker that I most look up to is Paul Thomas Anderson.
Okay.
Maybe to give a sense of
Okay.
where I lie on the spectrum. I don't see myself making like Godard films or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
As much as I love Tarkovsky, I don't think I could ever do that kind of style.
Right. Okay.
Just because I think my main focus has always been as a writer first, and then I think a director second.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it sounds like sort of how you view yourself, at least sort of falling in the landscape, is maybe somebody with some art house sensibilities, but fundamentally you do want people to be able to understand the characters, follow the
Yeah.
plot, some level of mass, maybe not appeal, but at least mass sensibility. People can comprehend and kind of grok what you got.
Yeah, I talk about a lot of times when talking to friends or family, I talk about how digestible films are.
Hmm.
Even if they're very artistic, there are ones that are maybe easier than others.
Yeah.
Like Wong Kar-wai, I think is easier than Tarkovsky or something like that.
Gotcha.
Um, and I think for me, what it is I love the idea of bringing Arthouse Cinema to people who wouldn't necessarily think that they like that.
Hmm.
Another influence on this film, and someone who I think does that really well, is David Fincher,
Okay.
because I think he makes like very technically proficient and really like well crafted stories. Also,
Hmm.
well, like he's good at both, and
Right.
um, but they make $100 million or more,
Right.
sometimes,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's I mean that like to be able to exist in the space of him or Tarantino or
Hmm.
and either of the Andersons where you get to make larger budget art house films, like that's like
Right.
really special and kind of rare these days.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
we just we were just watching Dune, and then the next day we watched the new Bond movie, and then the day after that we watched The Green Knight. And I was playing the like, what do you think these movies cost game with my
Right.
friends, and
Right.
uh, to it's a tenth, and it's crazy. It's crazy that movies now are either like $5 to $20 million or $250 million.
Yeah. It is. It is kind of incredible. It seems like the market forces keep on ushering things towards ever larger tent poles, and then all that's left over are just sort of minnows swimming about the pond, trying to
Right.
kind of get their piece of everything. Yeah. So.
To speak about one of the minnows and to call back something you said earlier about conveying a tone without spoiling anything, I really loved the marketing that Neon did for Titan, which is probably my favorite film of the year so far until I go see Licorice Pizza next week.
Gotcha.
But it does a very good job of showing off the visual style and conveying a tone without revealing any of the story. I went into the movie completely blind, basically, and I really respect that.
Yeah.
Because I like trailers. I know some people don't, but I'm a fan of like that little. It feels like just listening to one song off of an album you like or something. It's like a little taste of that kind of mood.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So, and it sounds like you've got your project started and going. Are you kind of self-financing it so far and trying to kind of slowly kind of grow it to the point where you can sort of finish the project, or how are you working through the
yeah.
funding so far?
So I put up a decent chunk of what I've saved over the last few years from working here in LA, and I've opened a fundraising campaign that is simply through our website, and that is sort of to expand what's possible for us and help take some of the give me a little relief. You know what I mean? We really want to be able to do this right and as effectively and professionally as possible, and so supplementing what I'm able to contribute to
Right.
expand the project, I think will be to its benefit, and
Yeah.
it will make us it will open up possibilities for us in terms of what we can do with crew and gear and locations and all those expensive things.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So what is your what is your hope with the outcome of this project? Is this something that's destined to festivals? Any particular festival? Are you going to just sort of release it widely online and hope it kind of catches a viral current? What are you hoping for with the project?
We are definitely trying to make our tour on the festival circuit.
Right.
And I have a very long list of festivals, and I've been sort of double checking that we're actually going to qualify, because as it stands now, I think this is looking like a 25-minute short film because of the three vignettes. So it's
Right.
basically a half-hour episode of television.
Right.
And not all festivals can program that because it's too long, or maybe it doesn't meet their qualifications. Like Cannes has to be 15 minutes or under. And unfortunately, that is my favorite film festival, but we will not be going to France, most likely. I would say all of the main ones and all of the second tier ones are on a list, and I'll be going through as many as I can afford to.
Right.
The
Right.
long-term plan, I would love, because this is in vignettes, I would love to, I'm kind of thinking about this as a proof of concept in some degree, and I would love to extend this. I would love to find maybe some financiers or additional producers on the festival run and be able to shoot another hour or an hour and 10 minutes and make this into a feature. 'Cause
Right.
then I think that will expand the amount of people who can see it. There
Yeah.
are less people who seek out short films in general than feature films.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are a lot of people who are happy to, you know, plunk down on their couch and, spend an hour and a half to 2.5 hours watching a feature film, but there aren't really that many who are even really think about short films as something to watch just for enjoyment. It's a pretty uncommon audience member who actually thinks that way. So I guess I'm interested in
That's why I respect this show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at one point or another, most every filmmaker is going to make a short film, whether that's as a student or trying to kind of make your way in the world. It just happens, and it's funny that it's this thing that I think almost everyone does at one point or another, but no one really talks about. So absolutely, yeah. And I'm kind of interested in the idea of taking a series of a few vignettes as a short film and kind of extending that into a feature film. Do you have thoughts about, are these vignettes tied in any sort of narrative sense, or are they essentially just thematically united, but from a narrative or character perspective, they're all kind of individual?
Yes, so there is a through line. I don't want to give away too much, but they, the people, the three sets of people have never met each other, but they do have a common connection.
Gotcha. And so it's something that you have either written down or written, in the folds of your brain, the idea of how to extend that connection into an hour and a half long sort of project. That's really interesting.
I think there are 3 chapters in this, and I think there are longer versions of each of those chapters. I think there are additional chapters that could be put into this. My DP the other day asked me, like, hey, would you ever do this as like a mini series? And I was like, absolutely, I could, like, the link between a lot of the content in this short is thematic. So to be able to extend that concept into a longer project, I would just need time,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Time and money, basically.
Yeah, it sounds like this is, just something that you're really, really excited about and kind of want to bring into the world. And that, I'd be kind of interested in turning for a little time here and talking about sort of your background, because you went to Syracuse University.
Yes.
Did you grow up in upstate New York?
Yeah, I'm actually from Schenectady originally, which is a small city near Albany, the capital, that's often forgotten. I'm like 2.5 hours north of New York City, and my dad's side of the family is from Manhattan and Long Island, and my mom's side is from upstate. So,
Gotcha. And my impression, I haven't really spent any time on the East Coast, being a sort of Midwest boy myself, that New York City and the rest of upstate New York might as well be different states for how disconnected they seem to be kind of culturally and sort of outlook-wise. Is that kind of true?
No, yeah, it's pretty accurate. A lot of times I'll say to like my friends or whatever that there's New York City, and then there's probably like 5 to 8 other little towns and cities around New York that are each like an hour and a half away from each other. And other than that, it's just like dairy cows and apple orchards and rivers and mountains. It's like, it's like the same as Pennsylvania, basically, if Philadelphia was just gigantic.
Right.
Right. So being from upstate, I had trees and, you know what? 2 good movie recommendations for Schenectady. The Place Beyond the Pines was filmed when I was in high school.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
I was actually able to be an extra in it, which was cool. In the cafeteria scene, you cannot see me, but I was there. And then Synecdoche, New York by Charlie Kaufman.
Right.
Is a pun and a literary device. But that was also filmed in Schenectady.
Okay. I was wondering if there was a connection.
That's the vibe of where I'm from. So there's pine trees and suburbs and, a small city. And I used to take the train in to New York to do stuff.
Gotcha. So I can understand growing up in upstate New York, it sounds like you went to sort of a relatively nearby university. And so I'm interested in what, there are increasingly, maybe 3 or 4 sort of film centers in North America between Vancouver, Los Angeles, Atlanta, and New York City. But for a long time, it was New York City or LA. And
Yeah.
you decided not to stay on the East Coast, and you decided to go to Los Angeles. What was the process?
Some combination maybe of a personal challenge and the weather. Um, I got very tired of snow. Depending on where you look it up, Syracuse is like one of the snowiest cities in America.
Oh, really? Okay.
And yeah, all that lake effect coming off of all the Great Lakes. It's rough. And I had family in the city. I think I liked the idea of coming out here and doing something different. And honestly, palm trees make me feel like I'm on vacation all the time. Like even when I'm just walking to the grocery store, like on my lunch break, like palm trees make me feel like I'm on vacation.
That's a good enough reason to go if you're always feeling like just kind of pleasantly on vacation, even though you're just working and living your life. So you decided to come out to Los Angeles. Was it one of the sort of grand adventures? I'm gonna, pack my boxes and drive my car over and just kind of hope to make my fortunes, or did you have some connections in Los Angeles?
So I actually finished school while I was out here. I did my last semester in LA, and I interned for a management company, Circle of Confusion, during the day, and I took classes at night.
Gotcha.
We have a sort of satellite campus in Sherman Oaks.
Okay.
And there's sort of it's almost like an abroad program that we have. And a lot of the journalism students go to New York, and a lot of the film students and music students come to LA.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it sounds like they did a pretty good job of sort of giving you a foot into what Los Angeles is like, and maybe even into sort of the industry itself.
Yeah, it was a nice little stepping stone to be out here already, but I had an internship and school, and I had almost like a window of time where it wasn't like I just moved out here and I was looking for a job or something right after school. It's sort of, I got integrated a little bit, which was nice.
Yeah.
Got my lay of the land before I was officially a college graduate.
Right. Right.
And when I first moved to LA, I had never even visited, but my intention was to stay, which is maybe a little messed up. But I had been to San Francisco for like 4 days.
Okay.
But I had never been to Los Angeles. And my friend, my producer on this film, actually, Justin Raymer, picked me up at the airport 5 years ago, almost 6. And he brought me back to his house in Santa Clarita for a couple of days. And then I was living at, it used to be the Oakwood, which is now like Ava Toluca Lake or some shit. But yeah, it was definitely an adventure. I had like 2 suitcases and my car. I had my car shipped actually, and I flew.
Yeah.
Like those big, really scary, awkward car carriers where it always looks like it's gonna fall off when you're behind them. So my car was precariously balanced up there.
Right.
And I literally just had 2 suitcases of stuff with me. Everything else that I own now is all new possessions, which has sort of inspired me to adopt minimalism.
Yeah, it can be nice to have that sort of clean break. I know
I got to restart.
Yeah, hit that restart button and you can sort of, you don't have all of the tethers of, oh, what do I do with my high school yearbooks, etc. You can just say, I only need this, and that's all I'm going to have.
It's just sitting under my bed at my parents' house.
Right. Yeah, and not such a bad place. In some ways, it can be nice to have a really fresh new beginning. So I'm sure that there are going to be some listeners here who are sort of in a place maybe somewhat similar to yours. They are, current university students or maybe high school students who are thinking about film, and they are thinking about, do I go to the State University film program? Do I just say, you know what, I'm going to set my sights and head to LA directly? From your perspective, what advice would you give them based on your experience?
I almost think that I underappreciated the process of going to film school
Mm.
before and partially while I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though it feels like you're paying a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
the nice thing about sort of being in the incubator and having the access to gear and
Mm-hmm.
like-minded people who have
Mm-hmm.
free time is
Mm-hmm.
that it is a lot easier to get projects off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on a lot more short films while I was in college for friends and things like that
Mm-hmm.
than since I've been in LA because everybody works, and
Right.
so like we're filming this piecemeal on weekends
Right. Right.
around people's freelance and um, gig economy
Right.
schedules.
Right. Yeah.
It costs a lot more money to make it after college. So, whatever you're going to do, borrow the most expensive camera that your college cage offers and tell all your friends that if they help you for a couple days, that you'll help them for a couple days when they
Right.
go to make something.
Right.
Um, like make friends with people who have different skill sets than you.
Totally. Totally. And when was it in your sort of journey in filmmaking that you decided that you kind of ended up slotting into sort of mostly writing and also directing? How was that process for you?
I think I always liked writing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm colorblind, so I'm not
Oh.
great at. I did lighting for like a black and white film
Right.
once,
Right.
which was easier. I didn't have to worry as much about like gels and stuff.
Right.
But I really don't like doing lighting or camera because every time I have done color correction, also everyone's always like, "Oh, this is too blue." Um, so, so
Yeah, that's legit.
I I always enjoyed writing. I'm not good at being creative in front of people. I could never get up on stage and sing or do stand-up comedy,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Mm-hmm.
like when I have a minute to myself, I get lost in thought and I like writing and creating stuff and
Gotcha.
um, directing kind of came with it because in film, in order to have sort of control over your story, that's the best way to do it.
Right.
And I almost want to say like picked up the directing artistic sensibilities along the way from
Right.
the stuff that I watched.
Mm-hmm.
Watch a bunch of stuff and don't try too hard to imitate, but just kind of, I don't
Right.
know, just go instinctively.
Right. 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 Yeah. Just kind of let the osmosis process happen, and
Yeah.
that'll put you in a good direction. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And so it sounds like you did manage to find work, and you've sort of persisted through the pandemic in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I was working as an associate producer on a comedy game show.
Hmm.
So I was working with a lot of stand-up comedians, which was very fun. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
but the my coworkers were a blast.
Right.
And weirdly enough, I have more connections and more friends who are in stand-up comedy than feature films, which isn't exactly what I thought or would have necessarily
Right.
asked for.
Right.
But I have actually not been working for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
part of my logic was like, oh, I've been given like this window of time where I have like a break,
Mm-hmm.
and I've basically been working on this short as if it's my full-time job for a
Gotcha.
little bit now, and I think I'm gonna be going back soon. I think things are starting to finally get back to normal where
Right.
we could film a TV show, but
Right.
you know, like everybody else, I've had to get creative and figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I know for industries where they were able to sort of enter a holding pattern, that's one thing. But entertainment industry has sort of always been gig oriented and a little bit sort of kind of piecemeal it together. It makes sense that that's going to create a sort of situation where, oh, I have free time now because in my real job, they don't give me time off, sort of a thing that creates a great opportunity there. Yeah. And sort of the hustle mentality that I think you can get into in that sort of industry probably makes that into an opportunity rather than, oh crap, I have to stare at my apartment walls for the next couple of months. Yeah. It sounds like you've kind of found a way to make it useful.
I definitely did stare at my apartment walls for a couple months as well. I thought
Yeah.
there was time for that too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I get not bored, but I want to do something after
Right.
a while. There's only
Right.
so many movies that you can watch in a row before you're like, I need to like ride my bike or go for a walk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or write or something.
Right.
And so, I had this project that had been sitting on my shelf metaphorically and,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of waiting to be able to do it. And now finally feels like the right time. And
Yeah.
I've got this team coming together and
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really exciting. Yeah. So I think that this has been a great sort of introduction to you, introduction to your project, and I feel really good about where we're at. So I guess before we wrap up, how can people get in touch with you and learn about your project?
Yeah, so I will give you arthouseproductions.com.
Okay.
It's spelled a little funny, so I'll give you the link for the description. But
Absolutely.
on our website, we have links to all of our other social accounts. There's information about the film. There's the donation stuff. That's probably the easiest one link, or I can give you like my Linktree link. The YouTube, Instagram, the website. I would say it's like the big three.
Gotcha. Great.
Check us out there.
That's great. Perfect. So
More content to follow.
there we go. More to follow.
Trailer coming soon. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Zach. And thank you all for listening to Cheat the Camera. Please comment and rate Cheat the Camera on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this. It's the best way to help spread the word about this podcast. You can get in touch with me by contacting me at contact@cheatthecamera.com. And thank you for listening.